Thank you for tuning into another video from JRM Recaps. Spoilers ahead. In voiceover, Irish-American mobster Frank Costello tells us that he would rather not be the result of his current circumstance. He believes his current circumstance should be a result of him. Then a grainy old film portrays vicious mobs in Boston during earlier times in history there. Costello, gladly Irish, proudly bigoted, explains that what disturbs him about African Americans is their refusal to understand that they won't have anything handed to them in life. Costello's conviction is you need to do whatever conceivable to take what you need. Costello is in a little general store and gathers protection money from the owner of the shop, a man noticeably terrified by Costello. Costello cautions him to have more cash for the next pickup. Costello asks the owner of the shop's young teenage daughter behind the counter if she has her first period yet. His mentality is casual and even more scary for it. The little girl is both insulted and constrained by the powerful Costello and provides an answer to his rhetorical question. All while the shop owner shows no emotion at all. A little child, a young Colin Sullivan, witnesses Costello's discussion with the owner of the shop. Costello sees him and inquires as to whether he's the child of a man Costello knows. He advises the storekeeper to give the kid 2 full bags of food and afterwards squeezes a few coins into the kid's hand. He advises the kid he can get additional cash from Costello when he grows up. As Sullivan gets older, Costello grooms him and steers him into a profession as a police officer, where he can keep Costello informed. Sullivan completes his time from the police academy and is promptly moved to the Massachusetts State Police Force. He is accepted into the Special Investigations Unit, run by Ellerby, which centers around organized crime. The essential objective of the unit is Costello. Sullivan is then invited onto the state police force by Chief Queenan and Staff Sergeant Dignam. Billy Costigan, whose distant family has significant connections to organized crime, likewise goes to the police academy. Before he graduates, he is brought to a gathering with Queenan and Dignam, who yell, intimidate, and verbally berate him. They pressure him to quit as a police officer since he's too intelligent to ever be a cop and in view of his family's connections to crime. At the point when Costigan faces their rite of passage, they change strategies. They extend to him an employment opportunity as a police officer on one condition, that he quit the academy, serve serious time in prison on an exaggerated assault charge, and become undercover in Costello's organization. Just Queenan and Dignam will have the knowledge that Costigan is working in secret. They guarantee him a reward when he finishes the task. At the point when Costigan is let out of jail, he contacts his cousin and attempts to finance a drug deal. Costigan and his cousin meet Mr. French at a local bar, where Costigan orders a cranberry juice to drink. The person on the bar stool close to him inquires as to whether he is having his period. Costigan crushes a beer mug over the man's head and is stopped by Mr. French. He cautions Costigan that he isn't permitted to lay his hands on certain men, and he's lucky the person at the bar isn't one of them. Eating at the counter of a store very similar where Sullivan initially met Costello, Costigan confronts 2 Italian mobsters from Providence coercing protection cash from the storekeeper. He pummels the 2 men badly, breaking his hand when he strikes one of them. Costello learns of Costigan's actions and requests him to a gathering. He offers to protect Costigan from the mafia, who, he guarantees, will come back with reinforcements to kill Costigan. He welcomes Costigan into a back room where he instructs Mr. French, a senior individual from Costello's crew, to check Costigan for weapons or a wire. Mr. French tears Costigan's cast open and Costello beats Costigan's wrecked hand with a shoe, attempting to have him confess to being a police officer. Costigan endures their beating and is accepted as a real criminal by Costello. Both Sullivan and Costigan gain credibility inside their respective associations. Sullivan visits a crime scene where the 2 mafia men from Providence are found. Sullivan contacts Costello, who tells him to persuade the agents off from investigating Costello. Sullivan starts dating psychiatrist Madeline Infuriate. Costigan likewise sees her, but only as a client, which he must do under the details of his probation. He additionally fosters an attraction to her. During an arrangement to sell stolen rocket guidance microchips to Chinese government specialists, Sullivan cautions Costello of the police activity and everybody dodges police detection by boarding boats that were at the back of the building. It becomes obvious to both Costigan and Sullivan that there is a mole in each other's unit, however neither side is unable to determine their identities. Costigan converses with Dignam and threatens to leave, however Dignam advises him to come up with evidence so they can track down the mole. Incredibly frustrated, Costigan calms down. Costello instructs Sullivan to locate the rat among his team. Sullivan requests his group individuals' social security numbers and different types of identification so he can find them. Costigan looks for the source and gains intel from an individual from Costello's group that Costello himself is an FBI informant, making sense of why federal investigators over and over again are unable to prosecute and arrest Costello. Costigan visits Queenan at home late in the evening and lets him know that Costello is an FBI informant. Mr. French gathers everybody's personal information and other ID. Costigan points out to Fitzgibbons that his spelling of citizens on the envelope with their data is incorrect and walks out. He visits Madeline at her loft, where she is completing the process of moving out. She lets him know she is moving in with Sullivan. Ellerby places Sullivan responsible for the investigation to track down the mole in the Special Investigations Unit, referring to his flawless record. Costigan follows Costello to a theater, where he sees Costello meet with a dark figure who he does not know. He hands the envelope containing Costello's team individual's personal data to the man. Costigan pursues Sullivan out the emergency exit of the theater and through Chinatown, yet neither one of the men learns who the other is. Sullivan advises Costello to trail Queenan to a gathering with Costigan. Costigan is at the bottom of the building when Costello's men throw Queenan from the rooftop, landing right next to his feet. As Costello's team leaves, Costigan goes along with them, posing as if he had simply shown up to assist them with taking care of Queenan. Delahunt is mortally injured by a gunshot wound. Back at their bar, the gravely hurt Delahunt fingers Costigan as the mole but passes away before he can tell any other person. A news report uncovers that Delahunt, a part of the team, was an undercover police officer. At the same time, Dignam is made to step down from the police force. Utilizing Queenan's telephone, Sullivan is able to connect with Costigan and is unable to convince him to stop his work as a mole. Sullivan finds out from Queenan's journal that Costello was a source for the FBI. He stresses that his way of life as a mole for Costello might be uncovered. With Costigan's assistance, Costello is followed by the police to a cocaine deal, where a gunfire erupts between his group and police, during which the majority of Costello's team are killed. Sullivan approaches the injured Costello, who concedes he is a periodic FBI informant. Sullivan then fires multiple shots into him with his gun. Sullivan is cheered the following day for having killed Costello by everybody on the police force. In good faith, Costigan comes to meet with him, trying to get his regular civilian identity re-established and to gather his back pay. He tells Sullivan he plans to continue his regular civilian life. Sullivan goes into another room to look into Costigan's employee record when Costigan sees the envelope from Costello on Sullivan's desk, with citizens misspelled on the front. Costigan at long last acknowledges Sullivan as Costello's mole. Getting back to his work area, Sullivan realizes that Costigan has sorted out his true identity, so he deletes Costigan's employee records from the police computer system. Madeline tells Sullivan she's pregnant, however does not uncover who the dad is between him and Costigan. A couple of days after the fact, she gets a package in the mail from Costigan addressed to Sullivan. She opens it to find it contains a CD of Costello's recorded discussions with Sullivan. Sullivan strolls in as she is tuning in and tries to explain but tragically fails to soothe her doubts. He contacts Costigan, who uncovers that Costello recorded each discussion he had with Sullivan. Costello left the accounts with his lawyer, who had given them to Costigan. Costigan says he needs his civilian identity back or he will incriminate Sullivan. They consent to meet on the top of the same rooftop from where Queenan was killed. At the point when they meet, Costigan surprises Sullivan and puts him in handcuffs. As Costigan had covertly organized, police officer Brown shows up on the rooftop also. Stunned to see Sullivan in handcuffs and held at gunpoint by Costigan, Brown takes out his firearm on Costigan. Costigan explains that Sullivan is the mole. Costigan asks Brown for what good reason Dignam didn't go with him, but Brown doesn't reply. Costigan takes Sullivan to the lift and Brown uses the stairwell to follow them. At the point when the lift arrives at the ground floor and the entryways open, police officer Berrigan shoots Costigan in the head. After, when Brown shows up, Berrigan kills him as well. Berrigan uncovers to Sullivan that Costello had more than one mole in the police and that Costello planned to surrender the two of them to the FBI. Then when Berrigan turns in a different direction, Sullivan shoots him in the head too. At police headquarters, Sullivan composes a story to safeguard himself, that Berrigan was the mole and suggests Costigan for the Medal of Merit. At Costigan's funeral, Sullivan and Madeline stand by the grave. Sullivan tries to speak with her, however she disregards him. As Sullivan enters his condo, he is met by Dignam, who shoots and kills him on the spot. As the frame pans to the window and the gold dome of the Massachusetts State House in the background, we see a rat scurrying along the balcony railing. Thank you for watching our recap. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the thumbs up button and subscribe for future videos. Also, try some of our other videos displayed on screen.